Before I close for the night, let me also, intimate you about one very interesting development that is happening concerning this Iran versus America war. But this time around, the center of attraction where it's happening is actually in China. You're like, what's supposed to be the business of China? They've done what they have done for Iraq and for Iran, and they are, distant bystander. It is not their business. They are just businessmen of the world. They are doing more than business. You see, China is notorious for essentially manufacturing the largest cohort of STEM graduates in the world. Let me give you the numbers. China costs out. China manufactures as many as 4 million STEM graduates, highly trained, fantastically educated STEM graduates, 4 million of them, every year. Now, 1.3 million of those 4 million are engineers. In China, China churns out 1.3 million highly trained engineers every year from the universities, while the United States of America only churns out 130,000. And look at that context. 1.3 million to 130,000 times 10 of what the US produces is what China produces. And guess what? Since this war started, there has been all those guys, a lot of those engineer guys. Do you know what they did? They went on social media, on Chinese social media, and they started doing this is open source, citizen level, no funding, no support, no states, no state sponsoring, just ordinary individuals, ordinary Chinese boys and girls on the streets who are fantastically educated from some of the top-notch universities. They went on Chinese social media and they started doing essentially sleuthing and splicing. What were they doing? They were picking American weapon systems, aerial systems, fighter jets, stratotankers, all sorts of gears, drones, and all, and they were doing schematics of them. And on social media, on Chinese social media, they were essentially doing, tutorials, teaching Iranians tutorials about the weak points of those American weapon systems and how to take them down. Stuff like people do on YouTube, exactly. That was what they were doing on the Chinese social media. To make it even easier for the Iranians to consume some of this content. Do you know what they did? They subtitled those videos. Those Chinese enunciated videos, they subtitled them in Persian so that the Iranians can relate easily. There is this particular guy, I've forgotten his social media name, it didn't stick in my head. You know what he did? He did a video explaining to the Iranians, subtitling in a Persian, the weak points, so to say, of the F-35 fighter jet, which is currently the apogee, of American aerial superiority. He did a tutorial showing the Persians how the weak points of the F-35 and how to take the F-35 down. That guy garnered up to 50 million views on that video on Chinese social media. Guess what? 5 days after he released that video on social media, the Iranians took a valid shot at the F-35 fighter jet. I must have informed you about that shot the other day. The Americans said that the F-35 took a lot of bodily harm, that even the pilot suffered shrapnel injury. However, they said the pilot eventually was able to land in one of the allied Middle Eastern countries. It took a lot of injury. Essentially, the plane crash landed with multiple bodily injuries. Do you understand? And there was some doubt as to whether it could be repaired or not. But at least the jet did not crash in Iranian territory, and the fighter jet made it home in one piece, even if both the jet and the pilot actually suffered some bodily injury. But clearly, after watching the tutorials, the Iranians learned from the tutorials in just 5 days. And in just 5 days, they were able to practicalize the tutorial and take down and shoot successfully for the very first time an F-35 fighter jet. I want you to see how open source social media, how ordinary citizens on the streets with no state support, no state funding, no state organization or aggregation, guys and girls just doing their thing on a social media, how they are influencing the course of this war from far away China via an ordinary video, on Chinese social media that garnered as many as 50 million views and was and happened to have been subtitled in Persian, how the Iranians actually learned from that video in just 5 days and took the first valid shot, in an aerial contest with the F-35. What do you think about this scenario? What is coming to your mind? Let me have your comments and your questions in the comment thread of this social media video. Thank you very much for joining me. See you in the next video and have a good night.